outside? Should I run and hide? How do I take my company worldwide? Do you love the law? Did you watch Hee-Haw? What's the weirdest thing that you ever saw? What's it like in court? Favorite sport? Can you help with my book report? Is my hair too long? Am I right or wrong? And do you mind if I sing along to anything? Ask Alan anything in the world.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Ask Alan, the podcast. I'm Alan Crone, the CEO of the Crone Law Firm, and I'm here today with Joseph Shannon. Joe is a lawyer in Chicago, Illinois. He's a friend of mine. We've known each other for 4 or 5 years, and he is a lawyer that represents people who have been catastrophically injured due to a trucking accident or other kind of injury. And he works hard for his clients and he gets some good results. And Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Alan. It's so nice to talk to a good friend. So this is a really good break from work to be able to talk to you. I feel like I'm at the other end of a bar from you down in Memphis, Tennessee. So I'm a pretty happy guy right now.
Well, good. Yeah, it's good to talk to you as well. I'm hopeful that listeners to this program know that I am a fully vaccinated human, and I've waited my 2 weeks after the second dose of the Pfizer shot. So I am hopefully on the road as our country is to recovery, and hopefully these restrictions will be lifted soon, and you and I can go visit our good friend, mutual friend, Father Carl, who lives in rural West Tennessee, and you can come down to West Tennessee and we get you some good old barbecue.
That sounds terrific. I know that our good buddy Father Carl Gregorich is he's a transplant from Illinois down to Tennessee, and we miss him dearly. But he's doing some good work down there, so I'm pretty happy for him. Yes.
Well, Joe, I appreciate your time and appreciate you being on the program. And, one thing we like to talk about is our guests' origin stories, if you will. I think, we have a lot of lawyers and entrepreneurs and aspiring lawyers and entrepreneurs. And, how you got where you got is always of interest to people. Where did you grow up?
So I'm the number 9 of 10 kids, and of Tom and Joanne Shannon, who, were a lovely couple. Who my mom grew up in Spokane, Washington, and my dad grew up in a suburb of Seattle, and so they ended up having 10 kids in this place called Yakima, Washington, which is, if you ever drink beer, it's probably where the hops were grown. Or the apples, most of the apples in the world, I think, are grown there. Very agricultural town and valley, but it's a wonderful place to grow up. I grew up in Yakima, Washington. Ended up going off to college at University of Portland in Oregon, and was there obviously for 4 years. I ended up going to Notre Dame for law school, and my third year of law school was kind of a pivotal moment, Alan. It was February of my senior year, my third year, and I met my wife, who was from Chicago, and she convinced me, she's a really good lawyer, she convinced me that Chicago was halfway between South Bend and Seattle, Washington, and Fort Worth. So I ended up out here, basically through marriage. I ended up practicing law. I was a couple years ahead of her, so I ended up practicing law in Portland, Oregon. And I worked for insurance companies and big companies. I worked for insurance companies as clients for 4 years in Portland, Oregon, at a great firm, Dunn Carney it's called, and it's some great mentors, great people. And then I came out to Chicago and I worked for one of the top defense firms in Chicago, Siegel McCambridge it's called. I worked there for 4 years. And then in '96, a friend of mine and I, we started our own plaintiffs firm. And so I've been practicing, representing people that have been injured for 26 years now. And in the present form, my law firm is called Shannon Law Group, and we got a terrific group of people that I really enjoy working with.
All right. So young Joe Shannon in Yakima, Washington. Now, is that in the, where is that located in the state? Is it in the east part of the state or the west part? Where is it?
Yeah, so everybody knows Washington as kind of a rainforest, and that's Seattle. That's the west side, and there's a mountains that go in between the west side and the east side called the Cascade Mountains. And so on the other side is high desert, and that's where I pretty much grew up. And the terrain there is excellent because it's fed by the Columbia River, irrigated by the Columbia River, but it's excellent for raising crops. So 2/3 of Oregon and Washington are pretty much dry, and the other side is pretty much rainforest.
Yeah, it's not too terribly far from Boise, Idaho, correct?
Yeah, so Boise, Idaho. So Idaho adjoins both Oregon and Washington. It's a long state, and Boise adjoins the Oregon side pretty much, and that's another great state and town, Boise. Again, it's more of a four-season type thing, like where I grew up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. You don't, from my part of the country, you're right. When I think of Washington, I think of the Cascade Mountains and lush forests and that sort of thing. But you just don't think of there being a desert that far north. But it is great country. If you like that kind of landscape, it's gorgeous, big sky and everything like that.
Yeah, so I've made a habit of driving out there a lot, from Chicago with my kids so they can see how beautiful our country is. And, you drive through all these beautiful states, you drive through Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, Montana, Idaho, all these beautiful states. And you see what kind of rocky terrain, and you get to see what the pioneers back, the 1800s did in a wagon. And we're going 75 miles an hour, so we're not feeling the pinch of it, but it's just an absolute gorgeous country we live in. And I encourage everybody to get in their car and drive. Folks that are in throughout the world that live in smaller countries, they don't understand why we as Americans don't have some sort of wanderlust to go out and see all the great things that we have here.
That's right. Well, so young Joe Shannon growing up on the high desert, why law school?
Okay, that's a good question. So you know what? I guess I was a TV kid. I watched a lot of TV as a kid. So I watched Perry Mason. I watched pretty much all the Perry Masons. I love that stuff. But I think, one of the things I thought about law school was that if I end up going there, that I'd have a choice of different careers. Because, if you're trained as a lawyer, you're trained basically to identify issues and to identify different ways to solve problems. And so I think I like the diversity of what I was going to be able to do. I ended up, being a trial lawyer. But I also do some stuff on the side, which I try to come up with different ways for people to resolve conflicts. I try to help people seek employment, that are seeking employment, find the right employment. So I try and do a lot of other things that involve some of the training that I've got in law school.
Very good. Very good. So 20 some odd years as a plaintiff's lawyer. For a young lawyer who's thinking, maybe I'll open up my own firm, what kind of advice would you give that person?
Do it. So I didn't do that right off the bat. I got some terrific training, working for insurance companies. I learned how they think. I learned how large companies think. I learned about all that stuff, which was terrific for me. I've had some friends that went to law school and just opened up their own firm, and I've become much more of an entrepreneur as I get older. This country is a country that if you hustle and you work hard and you network and you actually ask people for help, there's a lot of stuff you can do by yourself. And the thing is, with lawyers, is we help each other. So if I see a young lawyer who's starting a law firm, I'll help him out, or, him or her out. And so I think that's the case.
I think one bit of advice that I would have, be interested in your opinion on this, is I think a lot of people really underestimate the value of spending, I don't know, 2 to 4 years, maybe a little bit longer, working for somebody else to understand the craft, the profession, to get that mentoring that you mentioned and training. Do that on somebody else's dime, because doing it trial and error on your own, it can be a very, well, first of all, it can be very demoralizing. And the other is it can be very expensive, to make mistakes that a mentor may have helped you avoid. That's
true. However, I think that some of the best arrangements are for, a new, if you're going to start your own law firm, is to get a suite with other lawyers, and then you can just, do cases with them, et cetera. One of the things that I really think, for folks that are kind of feeling it like they're underemployed, or waiting for somebody to give them a job, is that they underestimate their abilities and what they can do. And, that's one thing that's really important. Some of the groups that you and I have been in, and Alan, is that identifying what you're really good at, identifying what your passion is, and putting together a team. And, if you can do that, it's a terrific feeling. I know you and I have been really challenged. I mean, I'll be really frank with you. We're coming off a pandemic. It's April 20th, I believe, today.
Mm-hmm.
So a year and a month, we haven't had any jury trials in Illinois. And, we're a jury trial law firm. And so, it was a very stressful time, but also, one of the things I always, I think in sports metaphors sometimes, and one of the guys I always liked was this guy named Lou Holtz. He used to be a coach for Notre Dame and a few other football teams. And he says, you got to go through fire to make steel. And we definitely went through the fire here during this pandemic, found out what we were made of, what was important to us, what our principles were, what was important, what was not. And we really came together as a team, and we made a decision early on. We weren't going to lay anybody off. We were going to work harder. We were going to do a lot of different things. And I think, looking at our firm now, we're way better off than we were prior to COVID.
I think that's right. And I think no matter what the business is, you had a choice a year and a month ago. You could either hunker down and hope that it was going to go away, or you could accept the reality and say, okay, here's my reality. How can I survive? How can I flourish given these new constraints?
Yeah. Listen, if I didn't believe in God before this, I sure do now. Obviously I did, but, well, I don't know who said, I think maybe it was St. Augustine. He said, pray like everything depends on God, and work like everything depends on you. And that combination got me through this. One of the things that I typically do, as part of my lifestyle, is that I depend a lot on my faith. I try, every now and then I'll miss, but I try to go to mass every day, just because, I like to basically at the beginning of the day really stress what's important in my life, and faith is utterly important. And so I get most of my power of how I act among people through that. So in March I remember St. Joseph's Day, I went to mass on St. Joseph's Day, which is March 19th. Is it March 19th down there too, isn't it, Alan?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, good. Anyway, and they told us, hey, no more daily masses. And I said, I'm a history guy. I don't think they've closed the churches in 2,000 years. And so it was a pretty big moment in our country. I was like, what are we going to do? And so one of the things, we're Zooming right now, which is good, but a couple of my friends and I decided that, hey, we're going to get together and we're going to pray the rosary on Zoom every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, to get our tails out of bed and get us working. And that, take the, place of mass if we could. And so we did that. And April 22nd, which is 2 days from now, is going to be our 1-year anniversary of doing it every morning at 6 o'clock. We give ourselves a little break on the weekends. We do it at 6:30. But I'll tell you, the faith got me through that, Alan, and really, put together, my belief that God is good, and we underestimate the power of who we are all the time, and we have so much to give to others, and so much power that we're not tapping into. And I'll tell you, it's been a great experience going through this. I know we're a better law firm, and we're better representing people. We're better identifying with people's problems, because we've been humbled too. So this has all been, I know you and I started just talking about having your own firm, but I tell you, having our own firm was important here, because it really was a gut check for me and everybody at our firm, and we passed.
Well, that's great. And, I think this year has been a great test of folks' entitlement. And, I think as humans, we all feel entitled that there shouldn't be any change. And sometimes change is the best thing that can happen to you, because it shakes you out of your lethargy and makes you reevaluate. And that's certainly what this year has done. And, so I think that the lawyers, the restaurants, the hotels, whatever you want to fill in the blank there, that didn't reevaluate and change are probably doing something different involuntarily now, because their business went away. And I always like to talk about lifting the restrictions rather than going back to normal, because I don't think we're going back. It's not going to be 2019 again. It's going to be 2021 or 2022, et cetera, with new parameters and new expectations. And, the world has changed, and hopefully it remains to be seen, but hopefully it's for the better.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Listen, this phenomenon of us being able to record a meeting, we wouldn't even have thought about that, because Zoom wasn't even around. There was FaceTime, all that type of stuff, but court appearances through Zoom are terrific. They save the clients a lot of money. Communication, our communication with our clients is better than it's ever been. You do this podcast, which is terrific, by the way. I listen to a lot of them. They're a lot of fun too. I really like it. I did almost 70 podcasts in 2020. And in fact, I interviewed you, and I tell you, it was so much fun to connect with people that I wouldn't have connected with. So, the one thing is, if you're not growing, you're dying. Okay. So let's just be really clear with this. If you have your own business, you've got to change consistently all the time. Now, you can have principles that last, you always tell people the truth, you return phone calls, you basically do the right thing all the time, all these types of things. But I'm talking about, different ways of doing business. You've got to change. And, we've been able to reach out to people throughout the country with our webinars and our website. And I started this whole group that basically we text each other. So I gave everybody my mobile number, and they text me, and I text all the clients. It's terrific. I never would have done that before this.
I understand. Well, let me switch gears a little bit on you. And as I said at the top, you do a lot of you've got a lot of experience with accidents involving large tractor trailers, trucks, that sort of thing. As our listeners start to get back out onto the road and start traveling, from your perspective, what are the kinds of things that people should be aware of or remind themselves of that would help prevent an accident or increase their safety out on the interstate, up and down I-55 from here to Chicago or Interstate 40 or wherever they may be?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, I've got 6 kids who 5 of them drive and who drive on the expressways. And so I'm constantly thinking about that. And so, you know, the number one thing is obviously be a very defensive driver. You know, there's a lot of blind spots for big rigs, and you got to be mindful of that. I tell my kids to drive like a little old lady, and basically get out of people's way. Don't get mad at other drivers, because that's a self-fulfilling prophecy if you think people are going to be drivers. One of the things I tell all my kids is to imagine that it's their grandparent driving the other vehicle that they're mad at, because then they won't get mad at them as much. And so I've taken that. About 5 years ago, I made that decision. I was going to do that, and I'm a much more mellow driver now, Alan. I'll tell you that. Because we've seen so much horrible things that have happened on these expressways. From here's the statistic. Most of these really bad crashes are by a very small minority group of drivers that are not properly trained, that have only been on the job less than 6 months. Don't have the proper experience. You can go on and on and on. And some of these cases are just horrific. Some of these, we just got a case in about 6 months ago where this driver admits to texting while he's driving this, multi-ton rig down the expressway, crashes into the back of our lady who's going about 10 miles an hour, rushes her about 50 miles an hour into another truck. And she's brain damaged for life. I find out this guy suspended 3 or 4 times before, got maybe 30 or 40 moving violations. And, I scratch my head. I'm wondering why the heck would somebody give him the keys? And, so those are the type of cases that I think about when my kid's driving. And, I guess, one of the things they could do is drive at odd times. Like whenever I go down to St. Louis to see my daughter, I usually will leave like 5 in the morning, maybe 4 in the morning. I get down there about 7:30, buy her some breakfast, but I'm away from all the wolf packs. When you get in these things where everybody's in a wolf pack, if you're in a wolf pack, get out of the wolf pack. Take your foot off the gas, get out of the wolf pack, get away from being around a bunch of vehicles. Always stay a long way stopping distance from anybody, so that if they put their brakes on, like a cow across the road or something like that, that you can stop in time. You're in no hurry to get there, and it's no good getting really bad hurt, because you're not, you may get there, but you may be hurt. So, go at odd times, stay away from wolf packs, be a defensive driver, imagine the other person is your grandparent. These are all good things for me.
Now, I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm curious. Describe a wolf pack, and how would you recognize what is it? What are the drivers doing?
So what happens is,
how can I recognize
it? Yeah. So, and I just use that as my own vernacular there.
Yeah.
The way that I look at it is, a lot of people like to camp in the passing lane. You've seen it in your way up to Chicago. And you're not supposed to be in the left lane unless you're passing. Okay, that's just the way it is. Well, what happens is somebody starts camping in that left lane, and their big rigs are on the right lane, if it's a 2-lane highway, and they're not moving out of that right lane. And but you don't want them to move into the passing lane and have to pass these people. But then you end up seeing there's 3 or 4 more vehicles behind the vehicle that's camping in the left lane. And on the right lane, you got a big rig, you got a couple other vehicles. So there's 6 vehicles in a small area that one mistake, it's over. There's going to be a big pileup. It's like a NASCAR race. So my recommendation is, okay, they're going 65. Maybe you go 60 and turn on the radio, some nice mellow music, and hang out and get in the back a little bit further. Or just get off and get some gas. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. That's good advice.
Sure.
Yeah, because I agree with you, myself included. We all get too impatient and in a hurry.
Yeah.
And you've got to respect them because they don't stop on a dime. And if something happens, if you're too close, it's going to be bad.
Yes. And the thing is, I mean, listen, some of the stuff you're not going to be able to control. I mean, I had a client that he pulled up on a traffic jam. It was just slowing down. And behind him, he saw a rig coming 70 miles an hour out. The driver had fallen asleep. Good for him. He ended up pulling to the right a little bit and got off the road. So he was, badly injured, but he wasn't dead because 2 other people died in the crash. So you got to always stay alert too, Alan. You got to always, know what's coming. Look in your rearview mirror. But sometimes you can't control this stuff.
That's right. That's right. What other interesting practice areas have you been exploring? Any new interesting practice areas?
Yeah. So one of the things that we did before the pandemic hit was we represented people that were injured by vaccines, and so we decided. I knew a couple other lawyers that were really good at this field, and I asked if they wanted to come on board, and they did. And so we've developed this practice where we represent people that are injured by vaccines, side effects, because there's a certain population that's going to be injured by these things. They have, immuno problems that basically they're going to get the vaccine, but they're going to have side effects. So we did that. We've written, I think it was 6 books now, for our law firm, and one of them is about the vaccine injury practice. And so if people go to our website, which is shannonlawgroup.com, you can get a digital copy, or we'll send you a free copy. But that kind of describes what kind of practice we got.
Now there's a fund for victims of vaccine side effects, isn't there?
Yeah. So the way it works is a direct action against a big pharmaceutical company that manufactures these vaccines is preempted. The government wanted to encourage vaccine makers to make them. And so then every vaccine has got, I believe it's either from 75 cents to $1, goes into a fund that will compensate folks that have side effects from vaccines that are on this specific table. And so that fund is large. And the good part about the practice is that the folks that hire us don't have to pay attorney's fees. If there's a special master who gives the award, and then we make a petition for our attorney fees outside of their award. So there's really no downside for people to hire us to do this for them, because they don't pay anything out of pocket and they don't pay us a fee.
Well, I guess the question of the moment is, are any of the COVID-19 vaccines included in this category?
That's a great question, and the answer right now is no. There's a different program. So there's VICP, which is the good program, and the other program is just not good at all. And that one is that's what covers this COVID. But I believe that Congress can change that with a stroke of a pen. But if it becomes a seasonal type of vaccine, like a flu vaccine, then it can eventually be on the table. And so we get a lot of calls for those type of cases, and unfortunately, they're not covered right now.
That's interesting. Although, I think the Congress and many legislatures have kind of put a pause on liability related to COVID just because they're wanting to throw everything at it that they can. And it'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out eventually.
Yeah. So I know a lot of governors, we had a governor in Illinois that said was trying to give blanket immunity to medical providers for COVID related injuries. And that's not the way it works in America. In America, the legislatures make the law, and then if the executive wants to sign it, he can, but we don't have this type of martial law. So, those will all be evaluated, but, typically there's no really such thing as a COVID exception to the Constitution.
That's right. That's right. Well, what else is going on in Chicago these days?
Well, what's going on in Chicago? Well, we're opening up slowly but surely. Obviously the vaccination numbers are up. I haven't looked at the most recent statistics, but it's one of the signs that I just we were talking about earlier is that the courts are opening up to jury trials. In fact, we have some scheduled in July now, which is terrific. And so I'm really grateful to our judiciary here in Illinois. They've worked hard to keep the cases going, to try and get the jury's trials open. And so I'm very grateful to that, the group of judges and the folks that are working for them to get those open. So, yeah, as far as Chicago goes, this is a great place to visit. And I'm hopeful that a lot of the tourist areas will open up. I mean, I think we have one of the finest art museums in the world in the Art Institute. I love going there, and I can't wait to get back in there. And then we have beautiful landmarks, obviously, and then baseball season started up. I know we're letting some. I don't know what the percentage is. Maybe 10% of folks go to the games. And so I don't know how good the teams will be, but who cares, right? It's fun to go to a baseball game. And the basketball, I haven't really paid much attention to it. But yeah, then it was fun to watch the NCAA tournament. We had a nice pool, and so Gonzaga, which is kind of where in Washington State, up by Spokane, where about a couple hours from where I grew up. That was kind of fun to watch those guys. That little 4,000 or whatever 5,000 kids school, go for the national championship.
Yeah. It also shows you what a coach can do when they stay in one school for a significant period of time. You can build a program.
Yeah, and he was an assistant for 9 years before he became the head coach. And so, I've never met Mark Few, but he seems like such a John Wooden type of coach. I was too young to really appreciate John Wooden when he had those UCLA teams that won maybe 9 or 10 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw his demeanor, and he just sat on the bench holding a program and rolled it up, and he pretty much did all of his work in practice and let the players play. And I love that. I mean, I absolutely, I'm an amateur coach, and I love watching the kids play and not be joysticked by a coach.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, very good. Well, Joe, I appreciate your time. It's been great talking with you. As I said, love to get you down to Memphis or West Tennessee. As you know, I have a daughter in school at DePaul, which is in Chicago, so I get up there frequently. And because if you recall, at one point, you and I were going to have lunch on St. Patrick's Day.
That's right.
Last year, and the pandemic shut that down, and I had to take my daughter home early, and it was a fascinating time to see Michigan Avenue completely empty. What we have seen since then is nothing short of incredible. But that's what life is about. Life is about experiences, and we certainly have had a great experience, or at least a tremendous experience the last year. And hopefully we'll all live to learn from it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I'm hopeful that our country will kind of turn the corner here and get back to basics, get back to, just normal, everybody will walk down the street and say hello to each other and talk and sit in restaurants and have a good time together and get the families all together. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right. Well, very good. Thank you, Joe. This is been Alan Crone, CEO of the Crone Law Firm. And I want to thank my guest, Joe Shannon, for sitting down with us. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Who am I kidding? Of course you enjoyed this podcast. It was a great show. So please share it with others. Like us on social media, all that good stuff. It's very helpful if you'll do that. If you're receiving this podcast via email and you think somebody would benefit from it, please forward that email on to someone else. So again, from the Crone Law Firm, this is Alan Crone. Joe and I both right now are going to go out and get some more justice. Thank you very much.
See you, Alan.
Thanks, Joe.